Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It is really wonderful to see this room full of our members, different stakeholders, cross-disability organizations, allies, people from UN agencies. We thank you so much for joining us. We'll be officially kicking off with this multi-stakeholder meeting, which is a landmark event for transforming communities for inclusion. My name is Waqar Puri, and I am sorry that I've been bothering you a lot on emails. Thank you for accepting the invitations and joining us today. I'm working with TCI, Transforming Communities for Inclusion, in the Secretariat as a Senior Programs Manager. And it is a really pleasure and great honor to have you all today with us. We welcome you all to our TCI Multi-Stakeholders and Partnership Development meeting. And we thank you so much for making this possible finally. We are hosting this event in partnership with our members and a long list of network members who have joined us today from different civil society.
In progress.
So sorry, again. Have joined us from different civil society organizations, human rights organizations, our cross-disability supporters, different partners, and UN agencies. We also want to extend a heartfelt thanks to the Wellspring Foundation, Wellspring Philanthropic Fund, and DFAT, CBM Australia for being our sponsors for this project, which we will be presenting today, as well as for sponsoring this multi-stakeholders and partnership development meeting. So before we start with the proceedings, I would like to start once again, I would want to thank our members from various countries who have joined us, and we have been with us since last 2 days for sharing the learnings from different works which they lead in their countries on the inclusion of people with psychosocial disabilities, discussing different perspectives on various thematics. We have been in the last 2 days agreeing on various positionalities as an inclusion movement and setting a reference point for advancing the rights of people with psychosocial disabilities in the development processes. I will not say much in this moderation because there is an amazing list of speakers over the day whom you will be hearing to, and you will be listening to the works conducted and led by different members, and our positionality, what we have been discussing. So it's a great day, and I will request all of you to be there with us for the entire day. Hello, yeah. So I will first request our Madam President, Ms. Robinah Alambuya, to join us to give an official welcome remarks for opening this plenary.
Hello. Yes. The government of Thailand, dignitaries here today, our development partners, cross-disability friends, disability experts, persons with psychosocial disabilities in our diversities, the TCI-Global board, all protocol observed. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say peace to us all. Shanti, Amani, Shalom, Mirembe. Yes, from the Prince of Peace. My name is Robinah Nakanwaji Alambuya, the present president of Transforming Communities for Inclusion Global. Allow me to acknowledge God, the author of life, for the gift of life, the gift of one another, and the human family that we are gathered here today in this post-COVID-19 era. Thank you for making every effort to come here and join us, respecting and valuing our work and invitation. Thank you for attaching value to our vision. TCI Global is a representative voice of persons with disabilities around the world. And we are very glad when you come and join us. Today, ladies and gentlemen, it's a milestone in our life journey as Transforming Communities for Inclusion Global. It's the first of its kind in our existence. It is a celebration of our vision, which is realizing all human rights and freedoms for persons with psychosocial disabilities, and particularly a right to live independently in the communities on equal basis with others, as it is in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Article 19. We are also guided by the UN guidelines on deinstitutionalization. As we celebrate the TCI Global Vision, together with you who are gathered here, we would like to remember and appreciate the vision bearer. Our resting hero of inclusion, Dr. Bhargavi V. She got the vision, as it is written, that you get the vision, write it clearly, so that others who read it can run with it. That is sustainability. And here we are. I would request us to just take a moment of silence, each one of us, in remembrance of Dr. Bhargavi V, the hero of community inclusion. Silence. As you gather your own emotions in appreciation for this gift on earth. Yes, we choose to release her to a better world. Dr. Bhargavi V got the vision and now has left the baton in my hands, in your hands, for all of us to run with this vision of community inclusion together. So here we are, with you all, celebrating victory over death, because she's still alive in all that we are doing, even our being here. Let us celebrate the author of life as we celebrate one another. And sing it out triumphantly. Like today, in whatever is happening today, it is a song of victory and triumph. At this particular time, ladies and gentlemen, in this plenary on community inclusion, navigating the practice of community inclusion, the TCI Multistakeholders and Partnership Development meeting, I would like to welcome the Vice Chair of Transforming Communities for Inclusion, Yeni Rosa, please come. And I also welcome, yes, come and join me here. I would also like to welcome all persons with psychosocial disabilities who have been here in the last 2 days, including our secretariat, hard-working secretariat. Please stand up. As Yeni is coming, stand up. We would like together in our diversity, because we come from different parts of the world with different cultures, you know, different ways of how we welcome. Join us as TCI Global. We would like to welcome all our guests today in your own way. Is that okay? How you do it in your community? Okay, 1, 2, 3. You are most welcome to this plenary stakeholders meeting. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for valuing us. Thank you for attaching value to our work and our movement. We are together in this journey for community inclusion for all, especially persons with psychosocial disabilities. We thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And welcome to TCI family.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the global TCI family.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Robinah, for such a warm welcome to all of us, to all our members, to all the stakeholders. Thank you so much for this encouraging words for all. You want to say something? Yes, I will do that. So I would just request Robinah, if you can, Robinah, you're giving it right now. Okay. So thank you so much, and I will request my team member, as Robinah was mentioning about our founding leader, Dr. Bhargavi V. She's not here with us in present, but as she mentioned that she is here with us. She's here with us in our mission. She's here with us in our visions, and we are guided by her vision, so that and she's here with us in our works and our missions. So I will request my team to play a tribute video for Bhargavi. I'm sorry, technology is always a challenge these days. After COVID, there has been so much of technology for us to handle. So let's see if we can play it now. Otherwise, we can move forward with the agenda and maybe we can play it after the next speaker. Because we also have to catch the time, which has been a challenge for us since last 2 days. I think we can play it after the next speaker, so that until then they can also fix the technology. So Robinah was mentioning about navigating our pathways on community inclusion, and she mentioned about community inclusion several times while she was speaking, and over the years TCI has built up a strong position on community inclusion of people with psychosocial disabilities, and the foundation and the vision has been developed from our founding member Bapu Trust, which is the organization which Bhargavi established in India for leading the national advocacy on inclusion of people with psychosocial disabilities, and supporting and promoting their inclusion in the grassroots communities. And the vision is guided by Bapu Trust. So I would request Kavita to take the floor and share the positionality statement of TCI vision on community inclusion.
A very warm good morning to all distinguished guests. We pay homage to our great leader and visionary, Dr. Bhargavi. She led us through the years. Her vision of inclusion and work through the Bapu Trust set course to the TCI ship. Over the last 25 years, through its work, the Bapu Trust for Research on Mind and Discourse has upheld the vision and practice of inclusion of persons with psychosocial disabilities. We gather today to discuss this crucial issue, one that challenges systems and mindsets globally: the inclusion of persons with psychosocial disabilities, mad persons, persons of unsound mind, individuals with neurodiverse identities, and those with intersectional disabilities. As a movement of people with these lived experiences, we are among the most frequently left behind in community development initiatives. Our diverse identities come with equally diverse needs. We urge a broad spectrum of stakeholders, including mental health service providers, policymakers, and community leaders, to design policies and programs that achieve our inclusion in community-based plans, policies, laws, budgets at each and every level: global, regional, national, and grassroots. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities provides a powerful foundation for this advocacy. Article 19, the heart of CRPD, affirms our right to live independently and be included in the community. This principle is further supported by General Comment 1 on equal recognition before the law and General Comment 5 on living independently. Recently, the UN guidelines on deinstitutionalization have provided unprecedented practical guidelines on making inclusion a full and enforceable human right. So what does inclusion mean? Inclusion is a universal aspiration. For any person, regardless of ability, it encompasses belonging to a family, community, to social networks, supported by access to essential services such as housing, financial security, employment, and leisure opportunities. For persons with psychosocial disabilities, these needs are no different. However, inclusion has often been treated as an abstract idea rather than as a tangible goal. While many practitioners claim to be inclusive, there is often little evidence of actionable practices or shared experiences which demonstrate meaningful progress. In recent times, every development practitioner believes that they are inclusive. However, we have few conceptual or practice resources or even shared anecdotal experiences that they are truly doing inclusion. Despite evidence to the contrary, mental health professionals believe that medical treatment and institutionalization can cure a person and mainstream them. Providing a service is misconstrued to be an inclusion action, and it is only partially so, if at all. Addressing legal barriers is not considered within the ambit of inclusion, though it should be. The process flows of these programs, their designs, are not harmonized with the CRPD. They are not geared up for the inclusion of persons with psychosocial disabilities, especially those who are most underrepresented among them. Inclusion requires programs and policies to align with the CRPD and address the unique challenges faced by underrepresented groups such as persons with psychosocial disabilities. Within any program, inclusion must be viewed as an outcome of the program, enabling persons with psychosocial disabilities to live well and on their terms. It means that program interventions will enable people with psychosocial distress or disabilities to restore, assert, and take control of their own lives, that the person is empowered to make decisions concerning themselves, that the person is able to exercise these decisions in their family and the larger community where they live, that they are able to choose their own care and support as required by them. Programs may think they are inclusive. However, as a movement of persons with psychosocial disabilities, we urge all stakeholders worldwide, please go back to your drawing boards, evaluate your programs against inclusion indicators, evaluate your programs against inclusion as a legal, policy, and programmatic, practical, tangible, measurable outcome. Community inclusion is not merely a value, but a practical imperative requiring deliberate actions. Based on over a decade of experience in Asia Pacific and now globally, TCI has identified several key actions which governments and all stakeholders must support to achieve true community inclusion. Access to mainstream services, ensuring equitable access to healthcare, education, skill development, housing, food security for persons with psychosocial and multiple disabilities, provision of community support services, facilitating access to disability pensions, social protection schemes, personal assistance, and official identification documents for full civic inclusion, transformation of services, reforming legal and systemic frameworks, including the erasure of institutionalization practices and systems associated with mental health and disability, deinstitutionalization, dismantling the infrastructure, legal, financial, and physical, that perpetuate and justify institutionalization, removal of barriers, repealing discriminatory laws, including those mandating medical compliance for social and political participation and addressing attitudinal prejudices, trusting communities, fostering community-based support systems by encouraging collaboration and participation among diverse stakeholder groups, government accountability and accountability of all service providers, holding service providers and the governments accountable for removing barriers, redirecting and stopping discriminatory practices, fostering sustainable inclusive community living. The Bali and Addis declarations marked pivotal moments in our advocacy as a movement, refraining the discourse from mental health to inclusion. These declarations shifted the entry point for psychosocial disability from the restrictive medical framework to the broader development sector grounded in human rights principles. They have become rallying points for ongoing efforts of TCI Global to influence global conversations on inclusion. Inclusion is a human ecosystem. It is not merely a philosophy or a set of legal principles. It is a human ecosystem where no one is left behind. It represents a wide spectrum, a diverse spectrum of services, supports, and practices which empowers individuals to live within their communities with dignity and autonomy. More importantly, inclusion is a commitment, a promise to create environments where diversity is not only acknowledged but celebrated. Let us act with urgency to transform inclusion from an aspiration into a reality, ensuring that every person, not only in this room, but in all countries, in all regions, in all parts of the world, all people with psychosocial disabilities, all people with disabilities can live independently with dignity, autonomy, and belonging. I will stop here, and I dedicate the merit we gather through our work to the well-being and true liberty and freedom of all sentient beings. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kavita, for this excellent keynote address. So the CRPD committee has played a key role in supporting our movement, and specifically the deinstitutionalization guidelines, which was launched in October 2022. TCI was intensively engaged with the development of the deinstitutionalization guidelines, including in emergencies, which serve as a new reference point for CRPD jurisprudence around Article 19. And we have the opportunity of having 3 CRPD committee members with us, and I would request our members and other stakeholders to feel free to connect with them and during the breaks. We have a video message now from Ms. Amalia Gamio Rios to share how we can promote independent living, deinstitutionalization, and community inclusion of people with psychosocial disabilities. I would request my team to play the video message from Ms. Amalia Gamio.
Thank you for the honor and opportunity to be with you today through this video. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities brought about another momentous paradigm shift, replacing the medical and charity approach to disability with the human rights model of disability, based on the inherent dignity and human rights of persons with disability. It is basic to understand that Convention is a legal framework, a binding international law, and it must be fulfilled as such. Article 19 of the Convention and its General Comment number 5 contain the right to living independently and being included in the community. It contemplates 2 concepts: the right to live independently, which is the individual dimension, and being included in the community, which refers to a social dimension. It is the positive. Thank you for the honor and opportunity to be with you today through this video. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities brought about another momentous paradigm shift, replacing the medical and charity approach to disability with the human rights model of disability, based on the inherent dignity and human rights of persons with disability. It is basic to understand that Convention is a legal framework, a binding international law, and it must be fulfilled as such. Article 19 of the Convention and its General Comment number 5 contain the right to living independently and being included in the community. It contemplates 2 concepts: the right to live independently, which is the individual dimension, and being included in the community, which refers to a social dimension. It is the positive right to create an inclusive environment. The 2 concepts of Article 19 refer to living outside of residential institutions of all kinds, and means, above all, not losing personal choice and autonomy as a result of an imposition. Institutionalized women and girls with disabilities are more vulnerable to gender-based violence, including forced sterilization, sexual, physical, and emotional abuse, and further isolation. In the case of children, the essence of the right to live independently and to be included in the community is the right to growing up in a family. It involves also attending to an inclusive school and, of course, not to be under the care of an institution. Where the immediate family is unable to care for a child with disability, undertake every effort to provide alternative care within the guided family and feeling that within the community in a family setting. States must ensure that parents with disability and parents of children with disabilities receive financial support for family, ensure they have the necessary support in the community to care for their children, that they receive information and guidance to prevent institutionalization, and be sure that children are not taken away from their parents due to disability. General comment also says, neither large institutions with more than 100 residents, nor small homes with between 5 and 8 people, nor even individual homes can be called independent living systems if they contain other defining elements of institution or institutionalization. Both large and small homes are dangerous for persons with disabilities. Former Special Rapporteur on Torture noted that persons with disabilities face a particularly high risk of torture in institutions. He clarified that all of these conditions will fall within international law's definition of torture. Articles 15 and 16 of the Convention give obligation to protect persons with disabilities against violence, abuse, and exploitation. Monitoring and redress for human rights violation in these facilities is rarely carried out. With no information on the condition in which they live, persons with disabilities are left at giant risk of trafficking, homelessness, exploitation, and abuse. The committee celebrated last August the 2-year anniversary of the adoption of the guidelines on the institutionalization, including emergency situations. But current governments have not wanted to understand that in all the documents, the concepts of non-discrimination, respect for dignity, autonomy, and equality are intuitive. They have preferred to continue living in the 14th century, locking people in institutions where, in addition to not being free, all their rights are systematically violated. To persist in institutionalization is to perpetuate the medical model, which ignores gender, age, human dignity, and autonomy. Because when persons with disability are institutionalized, the possibilities of violence against them increase exponentially, without the possibility of filing complaints and without access to due restorative justice. Persons with disabilities life is definitely in the Convention and is binding by virtue of international law. The right to choose where and with whom to live are immediately applicable. That means if people want to go out from institution, this must happen immediately, and state authorities must not prevent people from doing so. General comment number 5 and the guidelines on the institutionalization are authoritative interpretation of the content of the rights under Article 19. The Convention is the sole body authorized by the Convention to interpret and monitor compliance. Institutionalization on the basis of disability is inconsistent with the letter of Convention rights, the spirit of the Convention, and the general obligation of states parties. The committee has recommended to the states parties abolishing all legislation that allows the forced institutionalization of persons with disabilities, reassigning institutions' resources to community services, and in close consultation with organizations of persons with disabilities, adopting national strategy that includes clearly defined measurements, timelines, as well as sufficient funding, human and technical resources. Stop new entrants and not use funds to build new institutions. Ensuring sufficient subsidies and deliver directly to users. Utilize international cooperation for transition programs and community supports. We must change the shameful protectionist approach for the very decent support approach. Thank you very much.
We thank you, Ms. Amalia Gamio. You're not here with us. She could not join us because she was in travels, but it is very clear in her address that we need to focus on transition towards deinstitutionalization of people with psychosocial disabilities, people with multiple disabilities. So over the years, TCI has played a vital role in working with member OPDs in many countries, which has been echoing in the last 2 days very strongly, and how important it is to have a global movement of people with disabilities and what role a global OPD can play towards the establishment of the OPDs at the national level, strengthening their capacities towards movement building and leading advocacy initiatives. We thank our close donors and allies who have supported the work of TCI over the years, including the Open Society Foundation, Wellspring Philanthropic Fund, DFAT, DRF, UN agencies, CBM Australia, Women Enable International. It's a long list of partners who have been supporting the works of TCI, and I won't be able to take all names. So we would now request Ms. Andrea Cole from DFAT to share her keynote on the role of development agencies for supporting the OPDs of persons with psychosocial disabilities and building leaderships and capacity building of OPDs, how important it is and how development agencies can contribute to this.
Yeah, hi everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. For those of you that don't know me, for the past 3 years, I've been director of the lead policy section at the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, which leads efforts across the whole of the department to advance disability equity and rights across advancing human rights through our multilateral human rights system across international development and humanitarian action. I'm sorry I can't be there today. I'm zooming in from Canberra, and I'd like to start by paying respects to the traditional owners of the land upon which I'm located, which is the Ngunnawal people, the First Nations people, and I pay my respects to them, their cultures, and their elders past and present. I would like to also thank TCI for inviting me to this important event. I'm so pleased so many of you have been able to come together. We gain so much from a collective sharing of ideas and action, as the Bali Declaration, for example, demonstrated. And I hope you've had productive conversations over the past few days, and I really look forward to hearing the outcomes. It's an honor to be invited to speak as a donor government, and I acknowledge my fellow speakers and their important contribution and insights. But most importantly, I acknowledge you, the members, who are taking forward this important work. I saw some familiar faces at the beginning, and it was lovely to see you again, even if only virtually. The Australian government takes its obligations as a donor government under Article 32 of the CRPD relating to international cooperation very seriously. We are committed to partnering with others to create a fairer, more equitable world where people with disability are fully included and valued as active members of the community with the rights, dignity, and support they need to achieve equal outcomes. As some of you would know, over the past many months, we have been developing Australia's new International Disability Equity and Rights Strategy, which will guide how we will advance disability equity and rights going forward. The strategy delivers on a commitment under Australia's International Development Policy, which the Government of Australia launched in August last year, and prioritises disability equity and rights, and ensures that these rights remain integral to all of our international efforts. The policy committed us to not only develop a new strategy, but be led by the experiences and expertise of persons with disabilities, continue to support an active and leading role for people with disabilities and their organizations, and support local leadership, solutions, and accountability. To ensure we met these commitments under the new strategy, we undertook a comprehensive, inclusive, accessible, and participatory consultation process, ensuring underrepresented groups, including people with psychosocial disabilities, were consulted and listened to. We established an external reference group comprised of disability leaders with lived experience and experts active in the disability movement across Pacific, Asia, and Australia. We were honored to have the late Dr. Bhargavi V contribute. It was a testament to her work and the high regard within which she is held that our Foreign Minister, Senator the Honourable Penny Wong, invited Dr. Devar to be a member of this important group. As always, she was articulate and impactful in her contributions, highlighting the ongoing barriers persons with psychosocial disabilities face. We miss her kind, calm, and thought-provoking presence she brought to the table, but we will carry on her legacy by continuing to advance the rights of people with psychosocial disabilities. And we thank the current TCI representative, Risha Sharma, for her ongoing contribution. Through the strategy consultation process, DFAT engaged with almost 400 representatives in Australia and internationally, focusing on the voices from the Pacific and Asia, and more than 2/3 of these were people that identified as having a disability. We heard from underrepresented groups, including people with psychosocial and cognitive disabilities, autistic people, deaf people, and people with high support needs. 90 written submissions were also received. We heard from the consultations and submissions that the needs and interests of people with psychosocial disabilities and intellectual disabilities have long been misunderstood in development agendas, and OPDs saw a role for Australia in supporting self-advocacy and leadership of people with psychosocial disabilities. Unfortunately, I can't speak about how we are taking these insights and these important contributions forward. The strategy is almost complete, but has not yet been launched. We're hopeful it will be launched by the end of the year. We look forward to sharing it soon and working with you in taking it forward. So I would like to now briefly turn my attention to how we've been advancing the rights of persons with psychosocial disabilities to date. Under Australia's current international disability strategy, Development for All, we prioritise the rights of people with disabilities in all their diversity, including recognising the need for specialised efforts to address the additional barriers faced by people with psychosocial disabilities. We do this across our international engagement by promoting greater awareness of psychosocial disabilities, including advocating for the rights of people with psychosocial disabilities in the multilateral human rights system. And this includes moving from a medical model to a social model grounded in a human rights-based approach. Encouraging partner governments to provide appropriate and accessible supports, and supporting the participation and empowerment of people with psychosocial disabilities to become leaders and decision makers in all areas of public life. The Australian government is proud of the progress we have made towards fulfilling these commitments to date, which I'll briefly run through now. Firstly, through our support for TCI. We are very proud that Australia's funding helped establish TCI, ensuring a platform for persons with psychosocial disabilities and that your voice is heard. But TCI doesn't only just benefit the members, but it benefits the broader disability, development, and global sector due to TCI's advocacy efforts over the years. We're proud to have supported Pacific people with psychosocial disabilities to attend the Bali meeting, which culminated in TCI expanding its representation to the Pacific. And we funded Dr. Devar's attendance at key global events, such as the Asia Pacific Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction and the Australasian Aid Conference, ensuring that the barriers facing people with psychosocial disabilities are understood and addressed through international development and humanitarian efforts. The Australian government support has also included support for members traveling to this plenary meeting because we recognize the value of in-person connection, learning and collaboration for OPDs and self-advocates. And of course, we are particularly proud of our current and ongoing support to TCI through CBM in coordinating the community of practice on deinstitutionalization. Secondly, we are developing OPD leadership and capacity building. Many of TCI's member organizations receive grants through the Disability Rights Funds. And from 2020 to 2024, we provided 9.45 million to the Disability Rights Advocacy Fund, by which donors in the disability community can take forward a comprehensive approach to supporting the rights of people with disabilities through support to OPDs. DFAT's commitment to building the capacity of people with disabilities is a key reason for our support, which enabled TCI's deinstitutionalization community of practice to be established and be implemented. This takes an approach to deinstitutionalization, which prioritizes building OPD capacity to support deinstitutionalization, responding to the requests from the disability movement, and recognizing that people with disabilities are experts in their own lives and should lead these efforts. And I look forward to hearing TCI's work with the community of practice on community inclusion and its broader member network in the next section. Thirdly, we're progressing existing commitments by strengthening DFAT's internal capacity on psychosocial disability. In addition to supporting TCI, DFAT prioritizes building awareness and capacity, emphasizing voices with lived experience. This year, we supported CBM and the Nossal Institute in Melbourne to undertake research on support services in the Pacific, informing future policy and programming decisions. Support services are, as we all know, a key requirement for community inclusion and deinstitutionalization, and people with psychosocial disability have been involved in this research. In 2023, we supported TCI and CBM in creating essays on emerging issues, including one on psychosocial disability and deinstitutionalization, to inform DFAT and the broader sector. And we supported CBM in delivering a capacity building session on psychosocial and intellectual disabilities for DFAT disability focal points in implementing our international engagement on the ground. In 2019 and 2021, we supported CBM to develop a learning brief on psychosocial disability for DFAT staff and partners. And with TCI, we co-delivered a capacity building session on psychosocial disability for DFAT's disability and health sections. But as we've already heard, there is much to be done. I finish by reaffirming that Australia is an ally and champion in advancing the equity and rights of persons with psychosocial disabilities across our international engagement in partnership with OPDs. I look forward to working with the community in the implementation of our forthcoming strategy, the International Disability Equity and Rights Strategy, and hearing the outcomes from the community of practice work. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak. I wish you all the very best for the rest of this meeting, and we're pleased to support you in this important work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Andrea Cole, for joining us, and it has been a really pleasure having you here with us, not in person, but thank you for joining us online, and thank you for the support which you have been providing to TCI and people with psychosocial disabilities, organizations of people with psychosocial disabilities, towards consolidating our work and advancing the rights of people with psychosocial disabilities for independent living and realization of Article 19 of the CRPD. And we look forward to working with you and having future collaborations and working closely on the implementation of the DFAT strategy. I spoke about the importance of having a global OPD. And TCI had the opportunity to recently engage with the CEDAW committee chair and the CEDAW committee, where we had the opportunity to share how women and girls are discriminated in our communities, what are the gender-based issues women with psychosocial disabilities and girls with psychosocial disabilities face in our communities, in our institutions, in the society, issues related to access to justice, and there is a whole list of issues that needs to be addressed when we talk about women and girls with psychosocial disabilities. We have a full panel of intersectional identities today, and we would really request you all to join us for that panel in the afternoon. And we had requested the chair of the CEDAW committee, and we are privileged that she has sent us an online message, because she was also in travels and she
Good morning. My name is Peláez. I am the chairperson of the CEDAW committee, the Committee on
the video, and I also want to thank Women Enable International, who is here with us for mobilizing this work with to work with the CEDAW committee.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Peláez. I am the chairperson of the CEDAW committee, the Committee on Elimination Discrimination Against Women in the United Nations. It is a real pleasure for me to be here with you today, unfortunately just by video, but it's important to be here. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Transforming Community for Inclusion for this important invitation from me. Important invitation because talking about the intersectionality of disabilities and gender is crucial for the work that your organization is doing in relation with the right of persons with psychosocial disabilities. I would like really to take this opportunity also to highlight the importance of your organization, TCI, particularly being the largest umbrella in Asia for the voices of persons with psychosocial disabilities. And in this organization, such as organization, we need to talk really about how to incorporate an intersectional approach based on the right for all persons with disabilities. And we are talking about all persons with disabilities. The gender factor is crucial in relation to particular situation of women and girls with psychosocial disabilities. This is why a convention such as the CEDAW Convention, the Convention on All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, must be also considered in the work of your organization, in the work of any organization about people with disabilities or working with people with disabilities. In general, we used to use the CRPD, which is really a very, very treaty for human rights, recognizing the right of persons with disabilities. I had the honor to be also part of the CRPD for 8 years, and I had at that moment also the honor to analyze carefully the gender approach inside of the CRPD convention. This is why you can use in a very effective way the general comment number 3 on women and girls with disabilities of the CRPD committee. But it's not enough. It's not enough because we, women with disabilities, we are women too, and we need to analyze carefully also the connection between the CRPD Convention with the CEDAW Convention. The CEDAW Convention is based on the discrimination based on sex and gender, and based on equality between women and men. And this is something that we need to reflect and also to consider carefully in the work of our organizations, in the work as a human rights defender. I would like to take this opportunity also to highlight the special welcome to some of the members of your organization from TCI participating in some activities of the CEDAW committee. This is a way. The way is also to involve and to engage your organization not just with the CRPD, but also with the CEDAW convention. I can give you some example why it is very important to consider particularly these two tools, CRPD and the CEDAW, in relation with women and girls with disabilities. And when I say disabilities, I can say also psychosocial disabilities. A clear example is based on the situation, particularly for women and girls with psychosocial disabilities, which is legal capacity. Legal capacity is very well considered in the CRPD under Article 12 of this convention. But legal capacity, taking into consideration the gender dimension, is very well linking also with the CEDAW Convention. For example, many women who have psychosocial disabilities, even not women, even teenagers, girls, they lose their legal capacity due to the sexual and reproductive rights. For example, we can say clearly that harmful practices such as forced sterilization, forced abortion, forced pregnancy, in the case of women with psychosocial disabilities, is in many countries around the world are a reason why before this woman, this teenager, this girl is submitted to a judge for withdraw her legal capacity to deal with a decision based in a medical approach without any consideration of the full concern of the person. So this is just an example, but I can give you much more example. For example, if we are talking about access to employment for people with disabilities, in general, if we take into consideration the CRPD, in general, we are thinking in an equal basis, and we compare the data about how many women or how many men access to a job. But if we take into consideration the CEDAW Convention and the same right, the right to employment for women, in this case, we need to analyze more carefully, for example, the harassment, sexual harassment in the workplace, for example, or we need to analyze carefully also which type of activities are considered as job or employment for women, in this case with disabilities. For example, I can tell you, most of the cases, women with disabilities, and particularly with psychosocial disabilities, they are considered under informal economy. So they work cleaning and offering support for care for families, but without any recognition, without any salary, without any labor rights, for example. So this is why I insist it's necessary to have this intersectional approach. There are many ways to get this training, this information. In the United Nations web page for the CEDAW committee, but also for the CRPD, as I mentioned, there are different general comments linking with, or general recommendation linking with this important factor. More and more and more, United Nations, the CEDAW committee is taking into consideration the dimension of disabilities in its work. For example, our last general recommendation, which is fundamental here, and is also very well linked with legal capacity, General Recommendation number 14 for equal and inclusive participation for women in the decision-making systems, have a very interesting approach for disabilities. And in this regard, we need to consider how legal capacity is affecting the right of participation for decision-making systems for women and women with psychosocial disabilities. So this is my contribution to this discussion for today. I hope that can be useful for you, but in any case, I offer also the information through our website in the CEDAW committee. Particularly, for example, I consider fundamental General Recommendation number 33 of the CEDAW committee on access to justice for women. And in this general recommendation, you have exactly mentioned the importance of legal capacity, importance to ensure the right to take decision for any woman around the world. It's also important to highlight another recommendation number 35 for the CEDAW committee on gender-based violence against women, where also legal capacity is very well considered, because particularly women under legal capacity are more vulnerable, if I can say, to suffer gender-based violence, sexual abuse, and other mistreatment, who are not against any human rights approach. This is my contribution, as I said, and I hope that this meeting for today can be useful and productive for all of you. It was really a pleasure to participate here. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. So we'll now move to our next speaker. As I was mentioning that what role global OPDs play and what has been our positionality, because in this room we have many new members, new stakeholders, some new allies from different organizations who would like to know how TCI has playing a vital role in building a global momentum to position our advocacy on inclusion of persons with psychosocial disabilities, and also to know how we started this movement, what was the journey, and how we work with different stakeholders. So I would request Ms. Yeni Rosa, the Vice President of Transforming Communities for Inclusion, to take the floor.
Thank you, Waqar. Good morning, everybody, our distinguished guests here. I'd like to share with you about the history of TCI. How did we come until to this place right now? How did we start? This is a very, very interesting and very, very, for me, it's very, very powerful story. So I'm Yeni Rosanna Damayanti, Vice President of TCI. I also Chair of Indonesian Mental Health Association. This is the first groups of persons with psychosocial disabilities in Indonesia. We started in 2008. In 2012, I met Bhargavi V. At that time, I positioned myself as a patient of psychiatric services. I'm a woman with mental illness who are, treated by the psychiatrist. And because of that, at that time, I built up a peer support. Well, basically, it's a patient support of many patients of the psychiatric services in Indonesia, in Jakarta at that time, 2008. And we stuck in that, in which that at the time seems like the only solution available for us is only medication from the psychiatrist. And after medication, and then what? You know, there's nothing more to be discussed, as if our life is centered around the pills. And then I met Bhargavi, and then Bhargavi invited me to the first meeting here in Bangkok. She also invited some of other, newly emerging organization from Asia to sit here in Bangkok. The first meeting is only about to talk about who we are. Who we are, Because I feel at the time, I feel so kind of like disoriented who I am, So we only talk about who we are. And there are several meetings only just to talk and share and to strengthening our identity until we transform. I transform from only a patient of psychiatric services into a disability activist. It's a long journey from a psychiatric patient into a disability activist. And those formative years I spent with Bhargavi in many rooms like this, mostly in Bangkok. So Bangkok actually has a long history with us. So that's the story of TCI, how we became. And then after that, we think, okay, let's have organization. So our voice is not only for us, but for more and more and more people who face similar situation with us. We started to talk about name. What should we name ourselves? Until we come to the name Transforming Community for Inclusion. Because we think that inclusion in society is our main goal. So that's why we call ourselves TCI. And at that time, TCI Asia. After the years, we think that, okay, this is not enough, only TCI Asia. And then we started to involve the people from Pacific. That's in 2018. We met in Bali, the first conference of TCI in which we invited people with psychosocial disabilities from Asia and from Pacific, and our fellow disability organization outside of psychosocial disability organization to come together and sit with us and talk in Bali. And that's TCI Asia Pacific started. That Bali meeting is very important, not only because that's the first conference of TCI, but also it produced a document in which up until now becoming our guidance in the navigating what should we do, what is our next step, what is important, etc., etc. It's called the Bali Declaration. The Bali Declaration until now is still our guiding document in working our way in the disability and in the whole world situation. After COVID, hey, this is not enough only Asia Pacific. We need to be a global movement because we need to be heard not only in Asia Pacific, but we should be heard also at the international level because we are post-CRPD organization. And then the TCI, I think this is the most appreciated from my point of view and the most valuable decision that TCI ever make. It is to step into Africa. Oh my God, that's the best decision ever TCI ever made. So we started our journey in Africa. And we met so many wonderful people. We have meeting in Tanzania, in Rwanda, in Uganda, in Kenya, and in the Ethiopia. And we met wonderful, wonderful people. And I was so impressed with our African brother and sisters. And we are very happy that now we are TCI Global. So yeah, and I long to see our brothers and sisters in Latin America also to join us, and also from Europe, and also from Australia, and also from New Zealand, and also from the United States, Canada. Is possible to join us, so we can become a global network, a global energy to fight for the rights of person with psychosocial disability along the world. Around the world. One of the emphasis of in TCI is that you need a strong national movement. So you have to have a strong national organization, because the basis of the chance is at the national level. All of the agenda, all of the convention, all of the agreement in the United Nations is nothing if it is not implemented, it is not really work at the national level. And to ensure that, we need a strong national organization and build up a national movement. After that, we level up to be a regional movement and then to the international movement. It's very important. So having a strong national organization is one of the aim of TCI Asia. And then another one that we always encourage, that we are disability activists. We are organization of persons with disabilities. And that, so we must be part of the disability community, disability movement in our own respective countries and around the world. So networking with cross-disability organization is always becoming our priority, and we encourage our members to get involved into the cross-disability movement in their respective country. So have a strong national organization, build a strong movement, and having a connection with cross-disability is one of our principle in TCI. So, and not only that, but networking with other groups, because we believe that the larger our ally, our network, the stronger our position and our voice will be, and the bigger our allies have, and that our dream of having the fulfillment of the rights of person with psychosocial disability to be live inclusively in the society will be achieved. So thank you very much for all of us to join us in our fight towards justice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yeni, for this energetic keynote address. And since morning, like when we are hearing speakers, we are hearing cross-disability collaborations, working in partnerships. And when we talk about cross-disabilities, I would not want to miss the name of International Disability Alliance, which has been working with TCI since inception. And whatever we are today, we are because of International Disability Alliance, and they have supported enormously towards the independence of the organization and building this movement. So I highly acknowledge the work and support from the International Disability Alliance as a cross-disability organization, as a global OPD, for building the capacities and mobilizing different organizations of people with disabilities. And we continue to work with cross-disability organizations, as this is our strategy, and we have followed this format for many years, that we work with our members and then we invite different stakeholders. Let's work together. You need to listen to us. what are the issues which we need to be addressed together. And it is not possible that cross-disability organizations working on one side and people with psychosocial disabilities working on one side under the mental health legislations. No, that's not the solution. We need inclusion within the disability movements. And when I mention International Disability Alliance, I also want to mention that we are joined by IDA members also today. We have Mr. Lim Puay Tiak, the chair of the ASEAN Disability Forum. We have the executive director of Pacific Disability Forum, Ms. Sai, with us, and we are also joined by Daniel Liga from WNUSP in a later session, a panel discussion. So with this, I would request Mr. Lim to join us here on this floor and give a keynote on working in collaboration, why it is important to work in collaboration, and how we can continue this support from the organizations of cross-disability organizations to support the inclusion of underrepresented groups and people with psychosocial disabilities.
Thank you very much. You can see that I'm a bit too eager to come out here and join our friend in welcoming you, and thank you so much for acknowledging the contributions of the International Disability Alliance, and I hope that we can continue to be a source of support and encouragement to you. And we hope that down the road, because I'm now on the board of IDA as the newly elected treasurer, and I hope that together with the ASEAN Disability Forum in this region, we want to really put the spotlight on the map on how we can talk about disability inclusion, how we can really work together not only with our own OPDs but as well as other partners and collaborators to be able to really integrate and put a lot of cross-disability issues into focus. Today I've been asked to share about how we can foster closer collaboration between OPDs in this sector on mental health, psychosocial disabilities. And I want to say very quickly that Singapore, where I come from, we are experiencing a spike of mental health issues, especially among our younger generation. We hear horror stories about a 14-year-old schoolboy. He used a blunt metal rod to kill a fellow student for no rhyme and reason, maybe because of stress and inability to cope with the presenting conditions. And we have all kinds of expression of young people in Singapore, school-going age, who commit suicide, who isolate themselves from the community, and they are facing tremendous stress. And our Singapore government is actually doing a great deal of effort to make sure that the youth in our country is dealing adequately well and being able to be taught how they can better cope with psychosocial and mental stress in every aspects of their daily living. But it really amplifies very quickly for us how isolation, depression, and support from the community can actually play a great part in how we can cope with psychosocial issues and how we can really put our efforts together to address the needs of our younger generation who are facing a tremendous difficulty on how to cope with the stress of their daily living, schooling, family, the modern internet-friendly world, social media world, where they are thought to be more introspective rather than being able to socialize with everybody around them. I want to introduce, and I think these two words has been used quite frequently this morning. The first word is the word cross-disability, and the other word is intersectionality. And I think I am a strong believer in going back to fundamentals to examine what these two words mean, so that we can actually build a good foundation on how we can go forward in closer collaboration with other partners, with other collaborators, with other funders. And this morning we heard a great deal about what DFAT and what other organizations are doing to support each other in this field. Cross-disability is an approach that includes all types of disability, whether it's congenital, whether it's acquired, whether it's psychosocial, whether it's intellectual. These are all types of disability that form part and parcel of our world that we know about disability. And it is supposed to be inclusive, and it's supposed to be unifying, and it's part of the mainstream disability movement that you and I know about. The whole mantra of cross-disability is in how we can be consolidated, how we can find solidarity, and the fundamental of this is that we honor the insight and participation of all of our community members, simply because we believe in the fact that isolation undermines collective liberation. And it is very important for us to know that we must help each other to get out of our isolation and be part and parcel of the community that we live in. Intersectionality is a tool on how to understand and better appreciate the daily opposition forces that we face, and how it impacts our individual lives. I don't think it's about counting the various or adding up the sum on what the discrimination is all about, but we want to better understand in intersectionality how even our own identity is being intersected to create distinct experiences in our lives. We mentioned about the CRPD. I think you and I know that the fundamental thrust of the whole CRPD is a fundamental shift from looking at a person with disability from his or her mental state or health state, or being seen as a social service recipient, into a paradigm shift that disability is a rights-based movement. I think this is very important because the CRPD view people with disabilities as subjects with rights rather than objects of charity or medical treatment. And I think the CRPD is very effective in helping us to understand discrimination, and intersectionality can help people with disabilities experience discrimination and how the identity interacts with the other aspects of their identity. For example, like many of us here, people with psychosocial disabilities can suffer double discrimination and social isolation. And thirdly, I think the CRPD is a good example of how we can use human rights treaties to work and foster the whole right of inclusion in our society and deal with discrimination that's very prevalent in the world that's about us. I think intersectionality is not about just facing barriers, but we also need to understand there is a whole multitude of barriers and discrimination that a person with disability faces, such as unemployment, discrimination, social stigmas, and even more importantly, barriers to accessing healthcare or education. The International Disability Alliance, IDA for short, we recognize that disability rights movement just like any other social movement, is not homogeneous. It is a work in progress. And we want to make sure that we reach out with the best of our effort, with best of our intention, to support the underrepresented groups and their organizations. And we use this as a guiding principle to better understand and how we can effectively engage organizations from this perspective of these intersectionality groups grounds that we often deal with. And in terms of the whole idea of what in this business of inclusion is all about, we're talking about independent living. And there's three key pillars that I want to emphasize today. Number one is we need to have appropriate and accessible information. That's how it all started, isn't it? Because so often we face lack of information, lack of knowledge to move forward. Secondly, we need an adequate income. This is what community living is all about. Without a means to earn a livelihood, we cannot be participating members of the community. And then lastly, we need to have appropriate and accessible health and social care provision. And that's what the challenge is all about out there. How can we be able to put our place in this whole jigsaw puzzle of social inclusion and be able to avoid isolation and be able to being discriminated against and overcoming discrimination that faces us every day. So the whole idea of how we can really work together as partners, as collaborators, whether you are a funder, whether you are a service provider, whether you are an advocate, whether you are a peer support person, we need to really understand the 3 E's that I want to talk about. Number one is the word engagement. Let us learn to engage not only people that we serve, but learn to engage one another, because that is very important. And then secondly, we need to talk about enabling, the second E. We need to enable those who are helping the cause, those who are the whole target of the cause that we are doing in. We need to engage them. And then finally, the third E is we need to talk about empowering them. Don't just stop there. Give them the power to live their own lives, to reclaim back the prejudices that they face in their daily living, not only by themselves, but not only by the community that they're living, but the whole approach of how we look at disability. I want to depart and end my speech with this word synergy. And I think we need to take a synergistic approach to how we go forward and work together. It's very easy for us to understand what is the whole meaning of addition, maths and sums. 1 + 1 = 2. That's basic elementary mathematics. But you know, the word synergy means 1 + 1 = 5. With many hands, we're able to be a force that the whole world can reckon with. And if you and I learn to engage one another, enable one another, and empower one another, we are going to be a synergistic force that many people will find it difficult to overcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Lim. And as you mentioned, we need to continue collaborations and synergies, engagements, partnerships, and which we have been following and we will definitely continue to do so. Thank you so much for your keynote address. And before we break for tea, I would request my colleague Fiza to play the tribute video for Bhargavi, which we could not play earlier. And after playing the tribute, we would request if we can join back in 15 minutes. We can have a quick tea break and join back in 15 minutes because there are people online and who are there with us, and we will begin with the first panel discussion, which will be live streams as well. So Fiza, over to you if we can play the tribute video.